Hello and welcome to Dr. Say's English World. This is actually video number 3 in which we are introducing part 3 of chapter 1 of your story Great Expectations. أهلا بكم في القناة. ده طبعا الفيديو رقم 3 إن إحنا بنقدم الجزء الثالث من الفصل الأول في القصة في قصتكم Great Expectations. In part 1 it was an introduction to the story. طبعا الجزء الأولاني كان مقدمة للقصة. Part 2 was a presentation of the whole chapter in which I have read all the texts and they were followed by some questions and some answers. الجزء الثاني كان عبارة عن عملية قراءة للفصل الأول كله، وزي ما تذكرتم أو زي ما نتذكر I divided it into small text followed by detailed questions and answers. قسمت أنا الشابتر لنصوص صغيرة، كل نص كان متبوع بمجموعة من الأسئلة والأجوبة المفصلة. This is actually going to be part 3, and in this part I'm going to answer the questions in both the student's book and the workbook. I'm going to answer the exercises in both the student's book and the workbook. ده طبعا الجزء الثالث. هنحل التمارين اللي هي موجودة في كتاب الطالب وفي كتاب الأعمال. And by the way, it's highly important. And I'm going to show you which questions are important, which ones to expect in your final exam. We're going to lay more emphasis on such points or questions. Let's just move on and answer the exercises. Okay, let's answer the exercises in both the workbook and the student book. And we're going to start with the student book. خلونا بقى نحل التمارين اللي هي موجودة في كتاب الطالب وفي كتاب الأعمال. وهنبدأ بكتاب الطالب page 15. We're going to start with this exercise. Before you start, هنبدأ بالتمرين ده. Discuss the questions in pairs. خلينا نناقش الأسئلة دي. Who is the main character in Great Expectations? مين هو الشخصية الرئيسية في Great Expectations? Of course, it is Philip or Pip. And by the way, you can have a question like this in your final exam. طبعا سؤال زي كده ممكن يجي لك في الاختبار النهائي. تمام؟ Because as I said, you are going to have, a variety of questions, depending on the level of difficulty. زي ما قلت لك هيكون في أسئلة يعني متنوعة حسب متدرجة في الصعوبة. منها سؤال زي كده. It's a direct question. And you can also have a question like this. Who is the narrator in chapter in Great Expectations? مش هيقول لك بقى chapter 1. هيقول لك who is the narrator in Great Expectation. مين اللي هو اللي بيروي قصة Great Expectation. خلينا let's answer this first. Who is the narrator in chapter 1? طبعا of course it is Pip. Pip is the narrator. مين اللي بيروي القصة هنا؟ Pip. Why do you think Charles Dickens chose this person? ليه في اعتقادك تشارلز ديكنز اختار هذا الشخص اللي هو Pip? And if you read about Charles Dickens and the characters of Great Expectations, you will know that Charles Dickens actually had certain early experiences of hardships and injustice when he was still a little boy, okay? And the answer is because there are many ways in which Dickens' own early experiences of hardship and injustice are reflected in Pip. على فكرة تشارلز ديكنز اللي هو النوفيلست المؤلف القصة كان في صغره كان عانى من بعض الصعوبات في حياته وهو عكسها في شخصية بيب. You can have a question like this in your exam, by the way, in the final exam. على فكرة ممكن تسأل سؤال كهذا، فعشان كده يعني مش not all questions are going to be direct. You also need to to know a sort of, you know, how to analyze. Okay. طبعا بيتطلب الأمر بعد التحليل أحيانا. But we're going to refer to all these points as we introduce the story together. الحاجات دي كلها اللي هي فيها يعني احتمالية اللي يكون فيها سؤال هنتناولها جميعا. Okay, let's move to the next exercise.
Okay, let's answer this vocabulary exercise. It's still on page 15 of the student's book. خلونا نجاوب تمرين المفردات ده، وده في صفحة 15 من كتاب الطالب. And by the way, this is a very important exercise. ده تمرين مهم. And I'll tell you something. I have been preparing exams, very important exams, even national exams, for about 35 years. And I know which points a test sitter should include in his exams and which points to exclude. طبعا أنا عندي خبرة في وضع الاختبارات، وحتى منها كانت اختبارات يعني ذات أهمية كبرى، يعني خبرة تمتد ل 35 سنة. فأنا أعرف النقطة اللي هو التست سيتشر أو كومبايلر ممكن يحطها في الاختبار عنده، والنقاط اللي هو لا يمكن أنه يحطها depending on the importance of these points. So and that's why, you know, as we explain the story, I'm going to refer to these points which are important and which could be included in the final exam. طبعا أنا يعني طول ما أنا بشرح القصة هشير إلى هذه النقاط. And now I'm saying that this exercise is highly important. If you look at these words, خلينا كده نبص للكلمات دي. شوف الأول the question match the words with the definitions. هنوصل الكلمات بالتعريفات. I have the words here. I have 10 words, and if you look at all the words: blacksmith, commit a crime, convict, file, grab, got away, handcuffs, leg irons, march, and set off. All these words are, you know, among the words involved in chapter 1, and we referred to these words. We even underlined them, and we said that they are important words, and I ask you to pay attention to them. طبعا الكلمات دي أشرنا إليها اللي هي كانت كلمات بالخط السميك، وقلنا إن الكلمات دي مهمة، وحتى حطينا تحتها خط كمان، وطلبت منكم إنكم تهتموا بيها. أوكي، فعندي 10 كلمات. هذه blacksmith طبعا تتذكروا معناها اللي هو الحداد. commit a crime يرتكب جريمة. convict اللي هو المحكوم أو السجين. file عندنا هنا بمعنى، طبعا مش بمعنى ملف، بمعنى مبرد. grab يعني يمسك بشدة، زي يعني احنا كده بالعامية نقول لك يقفش. اوكي. got away يعني يهرب. handcuffs أصفاد اليدين. leg irons اللي أصفاد القدمين. march مستنقع. set off ينطلق، يبدأ الرحلة. Let's have a look at the definitions. A. Someone who is in prison for a crime. شخص في سجن بسبب جريمة. Do something which is illegal. يفعل شيء
غير قانوني. 2 metal rings linked with a chain which are attached to a prisoner's ankles. حلقتين من معدن متوصلين بسلسلة، وبيتم توصيلهم ل prisoners ankles اللي هم الكاحلين بتوع السجين، اللي هم دول أصفاد الأقدام يعني. 2 metal rings linked together which are locked around prisoners' wrists. طبعا برضو قطعتين من المعدن مربوطين مع بعض، وبيتقفلوا حوالين ايدين السجين اللي هم الريست، الرزغ، احنا بنسميه الرزغ، اللي هم هنا الايدين يعني، اللي هم الرزغ، الجزء اللي اعلى اللي قبل الكفين يعني. metal tool with rough surfaces for shaving or smoothing metal. أداة معدنية لها سطح خشن لتشكيل أو لتنعيم المعدن. person who makes things from iron. شخص بيصنع الأشياء من الحديد. especially horses shoes. وبالذات حدوة الحصان. حدوة الحصان اللي هي horses shoes. okay. low ground which is usually wet. أرض منخفضة دايما مبللة. get hold of something suddenly or roughly. okay. يعني يمسك شيء فجأة وبعنف. to have escaped يعني يهرب أو هرب. begin a journey يبدأ الرحلة. so let's answer the exercise. So a blacksmith is number F, which is person who makes things from iron, especially horseshoes. طبعا الحداد هو F اللي هي الشخص اللي بيصنع الأشياء من الحديد وبالذات حدوات الحصان. okay. commit a crime معناها يرتكب جريمة اللي هي تبقى B. do something which is illegal يفعل شيء غير قانوني. convict اللي هو المحكوم اللي هي A. someone who is in prison for a crime. file هتبقى E. metal tool with rough surfaces for shaving or smoothing metal. طبعا هذا هو المبرد. grab اللي هي H اللي هي get hold of something suddenly or roughly. طبعا احنا شرحنا الكلام ده كله. got away اللي هو بيهرب اللي هي I. to have escaped. okay. handcuffs اللي هي is D اللي هي two metal rings linked together which are locked around a prisoner's wrists. number 8 is leg irons اللي هي أصفاد الأقدام. it's C. two metal rings linked with a chain which are attached to a prisoner's ankles. number 9 marsh is G. low ground which is usually wet اللي هي طبعا هنا مستنقع. and then set off يبدأ الرحلة اللي هي جا. begin a journey. okay, let's answer this exercise about the characters in chapter 1. خلينا بقى نجاوب السؤال ده عن الشخصيات في chapter 1. okay. which of the people in chapter 1 أي الشخصيات في chapter 1 بينطبق عليها التالي. is often grumpy with Pip. دايما غضبانة من Pip. أي شخصية and of course you know Mrs. Joe his sister. طبعا هي أخته السيدة جو أخته. okay. was always very kind to Pip. كان دايما عطوف أو رحيم ببيب. طبعا this is Mr. Joe his sister's husband زوج أخته his brother-in-law. okay. has no family except for one sister. مالوش أسرة باستثناء أخت واحدة. of course this is Pip, right. طبعا ده Pip. okay. jumped out and frightened Pip in the graveyard. قفز وأفزع Pip في المقابر. طبعا this is the convict Mr. Magwitch. his name is not mentioned in chapter 1 but it will be mentioned later. طبعا the convict اللي هو المحكوم أو السجين اللي هو Magwitch. الاسم مش مذكور في الشابتر 1 لكن هيذكر فيما بعد. ask Joe to help them fix something. طلب من جو ان هم يصلحوا حاجة اللي هم طبعا some soldiers بعض الجنود. okay, let's answer this question. it's a true false question. خلينا نجاوب السؤال ده عن اللي هو أسئلة الصح والخطأ. But we are going to have something else اللي هو not mentioned، بالإضافة إلى شيء ثالث اللي هو not mentioned يعني غير مذكور. So let's answer the question. خلينا كده نجاوب السؤال. According to what you read in chapter 1، طبقا لما قرأته في chapter 1 الفصل الأول، answer true T. لو true الإجابة الصحيحة، الجملة الصحيحة تحط T. false F. لو خطأ تحط F. or not mentioned لو مش مذكورة هتحط NM not mentioned. Okay. So let's have a look at the sentences. Number 1. Babe was fond of his sister's husband. Babe كان بيحب زوج أخته. Okay. And of course this is true. طبعا صحيح. Babe's sister was much older than her husband. أخت بيب كانت أكبر بكتير من زوجها. Of course this is it's not mentioned. I mean, احنا لم يذكر ان هي كانت اكبر. It's mentioned that she was 20 years older than her brother but not her husband. ذكر ان هي طبعا كانت اكبر ب 20 سنة من بيب اخوها، لكن لم يذكر انها كانت اكبر بكتير من زوجها. Okay. Pip was very glad to get back home after visiting the graveyard. بيب كان سعيد انه رجع البيت بعد ما زيارة المقابر. Of course he was happy. Yes. فعلا كان سعيد. Pip took food from the fridge that had been prepared for Christmas lunch. It's not mentioned whether he took the food from the fridge or not. Okay, we don't know. It's not mentioned. He took it from the kitchen, but not from the fridge. I think it's not mentioned. Okay, مش مذكور النقطة دي. Pip told Joe about the food he had taken because he felt guilty. Pip قال لجو، كلمه على الأكل اللي خده لأنه شعر بالذنب. لا, it's false. It is false. He didn't tell him. ما قالوش. The guests didn't know why the soldiers had come to the house. الضيوف ما عرفوش ليه الجنود جم البيت. Of course it is false, because they knew why they came to the house. طبعا هم عارفين ليه هم جم البيت. Pip admitted to the soldier that he had seen the convict the previous day. بيب اعترف للجنود انه شاف اللي هو السجين يعني في يوم سابق. Of course it is not true. It's false. The soldier knew that Joe was a good blacksmith. الجنود كانوا عارفين ان جو حداد كويس. Of course. That's why they came to him. ده سبب ان هم اجوا له.
Okay, let's answer this exercise. It's called literacy devices. Idioms. طبعا idioms, remember idioms معناها اللي هي التعبيرات الاصطلاحية أو المصطلحات. It says here, writers often use idioms to make their descriptions more interesting. الكتاب يستخدموا هذا الidioms اللي هي المصطلحات عشان يجعلوا كتاباتهم أكثر تشويقا. Okay? And you remember we referred to some idioms while reading chapter 1. طبعا أشرنا لبعض اللي هي idioms أثناء قراءتنا ل chapter 1. And we're going to have two here. Okay? Do you think these idioms from chapter 1 mean? I'm sorry. What do you think these idioms from chapter 1 mean? في رأيك هذه الإصطلاحات بتعني إيه في chapter 1? Choose the best answer. اختار الإجابة الصحيحة. We're going to choose one answer out of two. We're going to have two answers. هيكون عندنا إجابتين. اختار الإجابة الصحيحة. Okay. Number 1. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Do you remember this idiom? فاكرين الأول أشرنا إليه في while reading لما كنا بنقرأ. So jumped out of my skin هل تعني something suddenly frightened me يعني شيء فجأة أخافني, or I felt something rub against my skin شعرت بشيء بيحك في جلدي. And of course the answer is number A. Okay. Something suddenly frightened me. Okay. Number 2. Once I got my breath back, I hurried home as fast as I could. Remember this idiom, got my breath back. هذا طبعا we refer to it while reading. طبعا أشرنا طبعا لهذا المصطلح. ف got my breath back means I found my way or I started to breathe normal again. I'm sorry, look at breathe here. This is not right. كلمة هنا breathe, we have breath not breathe. احنا عندنا للأسف هنا breath اللي هو the noun not the verb. So we need to use breathe instead. لازم الفعل نصححه يبقى breathe و add e at the end. Okay? Then breathe is the verb and breath is the noun. And this is a misprint. طبعا دي خطأ مطبعي and it's normal. شيء عادي يعني. So got my breath back معناه found my way or started to breathe normal again. And of course the answer is started to breathe normally again.
Now this is the writing task. It's number 4. Still the student's book, page 15. Refer to chapter 1. Write answers to the questions in your notebook. Give examples from the text. What is your impression of the man that Pip meets in the graveyard? Clarify your answer. Okay. This is my impression as a student reading Charles Dickens for the first time. Okay. He is a tough man. Why? Because he shouted at Pip, grabbed his shoulders and shook him, and also threatened to kill him if he did not bring the file and the food. Do you remember? طبعا كان ظاهر انه هو انسان قاسي، واللي عمله مع بيب يعني هو مسكه من كتافه وهزه، حدد ان هو يقتله لو ما جابش اللي هو المبرد والاكل. Okay. Number 2. How does Dickens use the natural environment? ازاي ديكنز بيستخدم البيئة الطبيعية to reflect the characters' feelings عشان يعبر عن مشاعر الشخصيات. Use examples to explain. If you look at chapter 1, Charles Dickens talks about you will find cold grey afternoon, the dark frightening marshes, and he mentioned the silent graveyard, and all these expressions which are related to the natural environment, they show how Pip was sad. Okay, this shows Pip's sadness. طبعا الحاجات دي كلها التعبيرات اللي هي لها علاقة بالبيئة الطبيعية دي بتظهر حزن بيب. Okay, let's answer this speaking exercise. ده تمرين في السبيكينج. We're going to talk about something in the story. We're going to discuss a question. هنناقش هنا سؤال. We're supposed to discuss it orally. Okay. So on hearing angry shouts, Pip says, عند سماع صرخات غاضبة, Pip says, I was afraid of what was about to happen. أنا كنت خايف مما كان على وشك الحدوث. What do you think the angry shouts mentioned at the end of the story were? في رأيك أو في اعتقادك ماذا كانت هذه الصرخات الغاضبة في نهاية القصة؟ Of course, at the end of the chapter, not the story. فالمفروض أنها طبعا في نهاية الفصل وليست في نهاية القصة. Okay. What do you think is going to happen next? في اعتقادك ماذا سيحدث بعد ذلك؟ I'm going to put myself in your shoes. أنا أحط نفسي مكانكم. So you can say something like they were the shouts of the two convicts when they were being arrested by the soldiers. يعني كانت صرخات اللي هم المساجين الهربانين لما الجنود كانوا بيقبضوا عليهم. And you can say something like they are going to take them back to the prison the ship prisons. هياخدوهم طبعا السجن يعني السفن اللي هم عاملينها كالسجن. Okay, of course they are going to put the handcuffs on their wrists, okay, and take them to prison. طبعا هيحطوا الأصفاد في إيديهم وياخدوهم إلى السجن. Okay, let's answer this exercise, and again this exercise is on pages 6 and 7 in the workbook. طبعا برضو التمرين ده في الworkbook في كتاب الأعمال. Okay, complete the sentences with the correct form of the words in the box. كمل الجمل بكلمات ممكن تحتاج انك تصححها، يعني تحدث فيها بعض التغيير. الكلمات دي اوكي هنكملها ونحطها هنا في الفراغات. And all the words are from those words in bold in the story as we have shown. طبعا الكلمات دي كلها من الكلمات اللي هي بخط سميك في القصة زي ما احنا أوضحنا قبل كده. Number 1 has been done for you. The words are first. خلينا نقرأ لك. Let's read the words first. Blacksmith, convict, file, handcuffs, leg irons, marsh, sit off, graveyard. Number 1 has been done for you. طبعا الأولى اتعملت معمولة هي. We can't build houses here because there is a marsh. The ground is too wet. ما نقدرش نبني بيوت هنا، يوجد مستنقع، الأرض رطبة جدا. Okay. Number 2, the metal was sharp and rough. المعدن كان حاد و يعني rough، مش ناعم يعني. So we used a to make it smooth. Of course we used a file. Okay. طبعا اللي استخدمنا ايه عشان ننعمه؟ استخدمنا اللي هو مبرد. The police arrested the man and put on. الشرطة قبضت على الرجل and put on what? Handcuffs. أصفاد to stop him from moving his hands. عشان تخليه ما يقدرش يحرك إيديه. They put their walking boots on and لبسوا اللي هي البوتس اللي هي الجزم المراقبة الطويلة and set off. انطلقوا، بدأوا الرحلة early in the morning. باكر في الصباح. In the past, all villages had a. كل القرى كان عندها ايه؟ a blacksmith حداد who could make things from metal. اللي بيصنع الأشياء من الحديد. I remember I used to live in a village. Now it's a city يعني الروضة in دمياط. أنا كنت عشت فترة في قرية كان اسمها الروضة، الحين هي مدينة يعني لم تعد قرية. And there was a blacksmith in the village, and I used to go, while going around, I used to see him, working. Okay. كنت بشوفه شغال blacksmith. Okay. Very dangerous were put in. Very dangerous خطرين جدا. Very dangerous convicts اللي هم المحكومين اللي هم الخطرين were put in leg irons. طبعا هي حطوا لهم أصفاد في رجليهم in the past to stop them from running away عشان يمنعوهم من الهروب. Okay. And طبعا graveyard is an area of land where people are buried. اللي هي المقبرة دي يعني قطعة من الأرض بيدفن فيها الناس. are buried يعني إيه؟ يدفنون. Okay, let's answer this exercise. And by the way, this exercise is from pages 6 and 7 in the workbook. طبعا دول من كتاب الأعمال وليس من كتاب الطالب هذا التمرين. Match the two parts of the sentences to make complete sentences. I have got هنكمل الأجزاء بقى عشان نعمل جمل كاملة. I ran to the shops and when نشوف بقى التكملة. When Tariq saw the huge angry camel, he nearly. The police think that the men. Okay, and let's have a look at the completions. نشوف التكملة بقى بتاع. Jumped out of his skin, committed the crime last week, got my breath back, I asked for bread. Okay, number one, I ran to the shops and when I, it's number C, got my breath back, I asked for bread. أنا جريت للمحلات and لما when I got my breath back استعدت أنفاسي I asked for bread. طلبت خبز. When Tariq saw the huge angry camel he nearly لما طارق شاف الجمل اللي هو الكبير الغضبان هو تقريبا A jumped out of his skin يعني أصيب بالذعر خرج من جلده. اوكي هذا معناها أصيب بالذعر. Number 3, the police think that the men الشرطة بتعتقد أن الرجال is number B committed the crime last week ارتكبوا الجريمة الأسبوع الماضي. Okay, let's answer this exercise. Complete the timeline with these events from the story. بقول لك أكمل الخط اللي هو الخط الزمني. اوكي timeline هنا معناها خط الزمني بهذه الأحداث من القصة. طبعا it has got to be in order in chronological order. طبعا لازم تكون في ترتيب زمني صحيح. Number one has been done for you. يعني number one has been done for you. نمرة واحد معمولة اهو. Pip visits his parents' grave. Let's read the events. They go to the marshes to look for the convicts. يذهبوا إلى مستنقعات يدوروا على اللي هم المساجين الهاربين. Pip takes some food and a file for the convict. Pip بياخد بعض الطعام ومبرد اللي هو السجين الهارب المحكوم. Mrs. Joe realizes that a pie has gone from the kitchen. Mrs. Joe تدرك ان الفطيرة اختفت من المطبخ. Pip sees another man in leg irons. Pip يرى رجل آخر وفي رجليه أصفاد. Some soldiers tell them that they're looking for convicts. بعض الجنود بيقولوا لهم ان هم بيدوروا على المساجين هربانين. A man in leg irons talks to Pip in the graveyard. رجل وفي رجليه أصفاد يتحدث إلى Pip in the graveyard. So we need to complete the timeline in order. Okay? يعني الأحداث لازم نرتبها ترتيب منطقي حسب according to their occurrence in the story. طبقا لحدوثها في القصة. Okay? So number one has been done for you as I told you. This one, Pip visits his parents' grave. So number two is a man in leg irons talks to Pip in the graveyard. Number three, Pip takes some food and a file for the convict. Number four, Pip sees another man in leg irons. Number five, Mrs. Joe realizes that a pie has gone from the kitchen. Number six, some soldiers tell them they're looking for convicts. Number seven, they go to the marshes to look for the convicts. Okay, let's answer this exercise. Answer the questions. How did Pip get his name? كيف حصل how did Pip get his name? كيف حصل Pip على اسمه? He found it difficult to say Philip Pirrip. The first one has been answered for you. طبعا أول سؤال مجاوبه لك. لا إنه من الصعب إن يقولوا Philip Pirrip. That's why they said Pip instead of Philip Pirrip. طبعا زي ما قلنا قبل كده Philip Pirrip هو ده اسمه بس كان صعب إنه يقولوا Philip Pirrip فقالوا Pip. Okay. Why did Pip live with his sister Mrs. Joe? ليه Pip كان عايش مع أخته Mrs. Joe? Because he was an orphan and she was his older sister. لأنه طبعا كان يتيم وكانت هي أخته الكبرى. Okay, and she was his only sister. كانت طبعا أخته الوحيدة كمان. You remember his 5 brothers and sisters died and also his parents died. تفتكروا احنا قلنا ان ابوه وامه ماتوا وكمان اخواته واخواته ال5. What did you think of the man in the graveyard? ماذا يعتقد بيب في الرجل اللي هو في graveyard? That he was one of the 2 escaped convicts. طب
Joe, what did Joe think of the man in the graveyard? جو ماذا كان يعتقد في الرجل اللي في المقابر؟ That he was one of the two escaped convicts. إنه كان واحد من الاثنين المساجين اللي هربوا. Why was there a lot of food in the kitchen the next day? لماذا كان هناك كثير من الطعام في اليوم التالي؟ Because it was Christmas Day. طبعا ده كان يوم الكريسماس. And guests were invited for dinner. والضيوف كان تمت دعوتهم على العشاء. The Christmas dinner. Why do the soldiers visit their house? ليه الجنود زاروا بيتهم؟ بيت طبعا بيب وجو ومسز جو. By the way هنا هنقول لو بصيتوا بنقول why كانت why do المفروض تبقى why did. ليه؟ لأن all the questions are in the past. يعني كل الأسئلة كانت في هنا look for example why did, what did, why was. كل الأسئلة all questions are in the past. That's why we have got to say why did, not why do. Okay? Why did the soldiers visit their house? Because they needed a blacksmith to mend some handcuffs. لأنهم كانوا محتاجين حداد عشان يصلح بعض الأصفاد اليدوية. Okay, let's answer this exercise. Answer these questions. أجيب عن هذه الأسئلة. How would you describe the beginning of the story? Are you enjoying it and why? كيف تصف بداية القصة؟ Are you enjoying it? هل تتمتع بها and why? Okay, so this could be your answer. It shows how much difficult that boy's life is. طبعا يعني how would you describe the beginning of the story? كيف تصف بداية القصة؟ It shows how much difficult that boy's life is. بتوصف ازاي حياة هذا الولد صعبة. Are you enjoying it? Yes, as for me I'm enjoying it. And why? Yes, because it contains a lot of excitement. فيها كثير من الإثارة. Okay. How did Pip feel when he stole the food and the fire? كيف شعر بيب لما سرق الطعام والمبرد؟ Did he do anything to relieve himself? Why and why not? هل فعل شيء عشان يروح عن نفسه، يعني يذهب عن نفسه اللي هو الألم، الشعور بالذنب؟ لماذا ولماذا لا؟ He felt guilty طبعا. How did he feel? He felt guilty. Did he do anything to relieve himself? No, he didn't. Why or why not? Because he thought Mr. Joe might not want to be his friend. Remember, لأنه خاف إن Mr. Joe يقطع صداقته وياه أو يقطع علاقة الصداقة وياه. Okay, let's answer this exercise. Read the quotations and answer the questions. Quotations اللي هي مقتطفات من كلام ناس. Okay. Number one, I want you to bring me that file early tomorrow morning and some food too. Then I will let you live. Who said this and why? مين اللي قال الكلام ده؟ قال له أنا عايزك تجيب لي اللي هو مبرد بكرة في الصباح باكر وبعض الطعام أيضا. And then I'll let you live. أنا هتركك تعيش. مين اللي قال الكلام ده ولماذا؟ And of course I'm sure you know it was the convict اللي هو ماجويتش، هو السجين الأولاني. Okay, الهارب. Because he wanted to remove his leg irons. ليه؟ لأنه كان عايز يزيل اللي هي الأصفاد اللي في رجليه. And by the way, this sort of question is expected to be in your final exams. Okay? You may have questions like these. طبعا متوقع ان نوعيه الاسئله دي تجي لك في الاختبار النهائي، لذلك لازم تكون عارف how to answer such questions. Number two, I didn't want to look after you. It's bad enough being a blacksmith's wife. I never asked to be your mother. مين دي يعني مين الشخص ده اللي بيقول لك لا؟ Who said this and what do we learn about her?
مين الشخص ده؟ مين اللي قال الكلام ده؟ الشخصة دي، وماذا نعلم عنها؟ اوكي. طبعا Mrs. Joe or Pip's older sister، اخته الكبيرة، اخت بيب. She's a grumpy person. هو شخص دائما يعني ممتعض او دائما غاضب يعني. We need a blacksmith to mend some handcuffs, please. Why do the soldiers need handcuffs, do you think? طبعا هنا بيقول عايزين حداد عشان يصلح بعض الأصفاد الخاصة باليد. فالسؤال why do the soldiers need handcuffs, do you think؟ ليه الجنود دول محتاجين الأصفاد في رأيك؟ And of course you know, for the two escaped convicts. هم الاثنين المساجين اللي هربوا. I hope we don't find the convicts, Joe. أتمنى ألا نجد المساجين المحكومين يا جو. Why do you think Pip says this? ليه في رأيك بيب بيقول هذا الكلام؟ ليه مش لا يتمنى أن يجد المساجين؟ Because he feels sorry for them. لأنه شعر بالأسى عشانهم. طبعا احنا يمكن ما ترجمناش اللي هي كلام أخته. I didn't want to look after you. مش عايز أهتم بيك، مش عايز أعتني بيك. It's bad enough being a blacksmith's wife. يعني سيء بما فيه الكفاية أن أكون زوجة حداد. And I never asked to be your mother. لم أطلب يوما أن أكون أمك. Okay? You have got to care about such quotations. You may have, similar questions in your final exam. لازم تتدرب على الحاجات دي لأنك ممكن وغالبا هتجيلك إن شاء الله في الاختبار النهائي. Okay, let's answer this exercise. Write a paragraph saying what you think will happen next and why. اكتب فقرة هتقول فيها ما تعتقد أنه سيحدث بعد ذلك ولماذا. And of course, we imagine that you don't know what's going to happen next, so you are going to guess what could happen next. And also, we are going to say why. طبعا المفروض ان انت يعني ما تعرفش ايه اللي هيحصل بعد كده. المفروض انك انت بتخمن وبتذكر السبب. And I have prepared this. I imagine myself one of you and I have prepared this. طبعا انا تخيلت نفسي واحد منكم وكتبت الكلام ده عن اللي انا بتخيل انه هيحصل بعد كده ولماذا. I think soldiers will arrest the two convicts. اعتقد ان الجنود هيقبضوا على هم الاثنين المحكومين او المساجين اللي هربوا. They will put the handcuffs on their hands again and take them back to prison ships. طبعا الاصفاد اللي هم صلحوها، فاكرين الاصفاد اللي صلحوها، هيحطوا الاصفاد تاني في ايديهم وياخدوهم اللي هي البريزون شيبس اللي هي السفن اللي معموله سجون. Pip may tell Mr. Joe that he took a file and some food for one of the convicts because he threatened him and he was scared. Pip ممكن يعني يقول لمستر جو انه اخذ فايل اللي هو المبرد وبعض الاكل لواحد من الاثنين اللي هم المساجين اللي هاربين لانه هدده وهو كان خايف. This is actually the end of chapter 1. طبعا نهاية chapter 1 of Great Expectations, the story you are studying. And as you all know, we have read the whole chapter. We have prepared and answered some detailed questions covering all the events of the story. And we have also answered the exercises in both the student book and the workbook. زي ما انتم عارفين قرأنا القصة كلها، حطينا أسئلة مفصلة على جميع أحداث القصة، حلينا التمارين اللي موجودة في كتاب الطالب وفي كتاب الأعمال. And inshallah, this is what we're going to do with every chapter. So inshallah, until I see you inshallah in chapter 2, I want you to subscribe and don't forget to support us with your likes, okay? إن شاء الله لغاية ما أشوفكم في الفصل الثاني chapter 2. لا تنسوا الاشتراك في القناة وتدعمونا باللايكس and see you إن شاء الله in chapter 2. I wish you success. السلام عليكم.